Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm in the mood for something dark and gloomy today. It's one of those spring days where it's kind of sunny, but there are clouds just like rolling in at the same time. You know, classic shoulder weather where you don't know how to dress for it or what's going on. And I really want to watch like a classic film and just work on some of my projects. So I thought maybe you might want to watch with me. So I was very excited to see that Rebecca, the 1940s Rebecca, is free to watch on YouTube. It's on with Laurence Olivier and Joan Fontaine. I love this film. I was really obsessed with it as a kid. I watched it so many times in a row. And I just feel like rewatching. I've also got a project on the go that I want to make some headway with. And I know what I need to do is just really get my head down and just like crack on with it. So this is the project. It's my virus shawl that I'm making of silk, merino wool for my cousin's wedding. It's a green, purple, white combination that kind of reminds me of spring. This is a black and white film, but I feel like this is very much the colors of Rebecca. And I'm just not as far as I need to be. So I've done 11 repeats of the pattern. And I think I honestly need to get to like 22 before I can wear it to the wedding. So what I thought I'd do today is, watch Rebecca, work on the shawl and update you as I go. So the film, which I will link in the description if you want to watch it along with me, is 2 hours long. So I'll do what I've done before of checking with you every half hour, let you know how I'm doing with the shawl, let you know my thoughts on the film so far. Yeah, I'm going to try not to preemptively spoiler it for anyone. Like I won't talk about things that haven't happened yet in the film in case it's the first time you've watched it. And yeah, if you want to work on your projects as well and just let me know how you're doing with them, I'd love that. A few people did last time when I watched the 1990s Persuasion, and it was just great. I love to hear what you guys are working on. So I'm going to start the film and start cracking on with the shawl. All right, half an hour in. We've seen the unnamed narrator, who I'm just going to be calling Joan because she's played by Joan Fontaine. We've seen her meet Maxim, fall in love with him, receive the world's worst proposal, get married, go to Mandalay, meet Mrs. Danvers, the housekeeper. And for me, the half-hour mark comes when she's just had that initial first conversation with Mrs. Danvers where she realizes like, oh, maybe this woman isn't really a fan of me, maybe not a friend. So thoughts so far. First of all, just love how gothic this is. Secondly, why am I getting vibes from the third series of Bridgerton when Penn and Colin have their first kiss? I don't know if it's just all the kind of like the dry ice and the haunting fog, but it just, I don't know, that was the vibe for me. But yeah, so basically, I am really enjoying this, and I'm also enjoying Laurence Olivier, the only man whose face looks better with one of those weird little thin pencil mustaches, in my opinion. I love the performance both of them are giving. I read that Joan Fontaine was one of the first of many blonde actresses that Hitchcock was absolutely horrible to, and he basically isolated her through the film. A little bit like Stanley Kubrick did for The Shining with the actress in that, who I feel really bad that I've forgotten the name of. But yeah, in this one, Hitchcock isolated Joan Fontaine. I read that he made her think everyone on set hated her, made her think that everyone thought she was a real amateur and couldn't handle any of this. But I've always loved this performance from her because it's just so real. Like, I feel like I connect with it on such an emotional level, you know? One of the things I love about this as well is that it's so unclear about, is this actually a romance or not? On the one hand, I think Laurence Olivier does do a really good job of coming across like a bit of an awkward bean who doesn't really know what he's doing, know how to romance a woman, is kind of putting up a bit of a front of like, oh, you probably want me to romance you. And it's like, yes, mate, she probably does. Like, I find him incredibly awkward, which I find very endearing. At the same time, pretty much every other thing he says is like a massive red flag where you're like, is this getting into some kind of Bluebeard territory? I haven't read anything about if Rebecca is based on Bluebeard, actually, but I would not be at all surprised. I'm sure there's been some criticism written about it in that way, where you're a bit like, why are you so drawn to this mousy, trembling little creature? Why are you so insistent on marrying her immediately but avoiding all the trappings of romance and courtship? Why is it that when she says that she is isolated, without friends, without family, has recently lost the last of her parents, that almost seems to spark your interest more? What do you want? Why do you want why do you want to get her back to this place that you don't seem very fond of? And I do love that dynamic continues through the opening of the film, where you are just so kind of, is this, like, all those scenes of them in the car just awkwardly smiling at each other, and you're like, is this just two awkward people meeting the person they just vibe with, even though their conversations don't show a lot of similarities and they don't seem to have a lot in common? Is this just two awkward people meeting someone who they just vibe with and just get on with and just the right person for them? Or is there some sinister element here? And why is he behaving this way, and what is he doing? And the whole kind of like training her up to do his tea correctly, calling her little girl, telling her not to grow up. You know, it's very kind of man in his 40s wants a girlfriend who's 21 because then she's like less bitter coded. You know, that kind of guy you see online. And I love the supporting characters. Like, all the side characters are so deliciously awful, aren't they? Like Mrs. Vanderhopper and all her assumptions about the intentions of Joan Fontaine, and her sneering and her kind of like sinister interpretation of everything. Like, Mrs. Vanderhopper and Maxim have a lot more in common in terms of the cynical, jaded way they view the world. And Mrs. Danvers, we're going to talk a lot more about Mrs. Danvers as it goes on, because she becomes a much bigger part of the film. But I enjoy her. I enjoy her as a character. I know that there are some other really great side characters and supporting characters to come in as well. And it's always just been like, even though a lot of Hitchcock films are based around traditionally fully focused on a woman with a man as a secondary, you know, it's like it's normally a couple or an individual they focus on. I always feel it's the side characters and supporting characters that really make it and really bring their own kind of level of sinister kind of twistedness to the plot. And also, can we just take a moment to appreciate this is during the Hays Code. We've got references to suicide, we've got references to extramarital sex. I feel like it's very kind of cleverly done for the time. But yeah, that's it from me. Gonna have some lunch, I think. Oh, I haven't told you about the shawl. Okay, so I've been doing a setup row for the shawl, which is, well, I've done the setup row of going across, and now I'm doing the first kind of line of the actual pattern. And this is the row that always takes me the longest and kills my thumb when I'm crocheting. So basically, I have not done another repeat yet. Bear in mind, I need to do about 11 repeats, and I have not even done one. And they're going to take longer as I go on. It's more than I had when I started watching. And I think now that I've done the setup row for this particular repeat, it's going to go quite fast. So I expect to be on to the next setup row by the time I catch up with you again. Wish me luck. All right, we're an hour in. And for me, the hour mark is just as we hear one of the most familiar voices from this era, I think. And I've totally forgotten the name of the actor, but the guy who did the voice for Shere Khan is about to appear. But anyway, that's what's coming up. What's happened so far? Well, firstly, we have not actually seen as much of Mrs. Danvers as I expected. I forgot a lot of this part of the film was about the kind of difficulties that Maxim and Joan Fontaine have in adapting to married life and kind of adapting to, you know, when they met, they were in, I think it was Monte Carlo, and they were living this very kind of like fun life, you know, like not many responsibilities, like let's just go out for a drive, let's go for dinner. And now they're kind of like at this old country house and they have all these responsibilities. They need to deal with the servants, they need to deal with the tenants. Obviously it's like, oh, boo-hoo. You know, they're crushing responsibilities of the extremely wealthy. But it's a shift for their relationship. Okay, so firstly, love Maxim's sister and her husband Giles. Like Giles, he's played by the guy who played John Watson in a lot of the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes, which at some point I might even just do an afternoon of just watching those because I just love them and I love him as Dr. Watson. And I love that he always plays the same character. It's kind of like... He's just, I love him. What's really happening for me is we watch Joan Fontaine understand how interwoven Rebecca is in every single aspect of her life now. And as we watch Maxim and Joan Fontaine struggle to adapt their relationship, I'm just really building a hypothesis in my head that both of them are autistic. And this is based on nothing. Like, I think there was some speculation that Daphne Du Maurier herself was neurodivergent. If this is the first of my videos you've watched, I myself am ADHD. And I've been reading up a lot about neurodivergency in general over the last few years. So this is just very much a fan theory, like based on nothing that anyone involved in this has ever said. It's not like Laurence Olivier came out and was like, yes, I made Maxim autistic. But I feel like there's just such a case for it, because on the surface, Maxim is just the worst, just fantastically the worst. He doesn't seem to notice his wife's emotions. He doesn't seem to notice that she's struggling. He seems incapable of offering her comfort. The man who has been nicest to her and who has given her potentially the most kind of comfort and words of advice and cheer in the beginning of her marriage isn't her husband. It's like her husband's foreman or whatever they're called. Like, that's not the guy who should be comforting her. And Maxim also, he just seems to have these like intense mood swings and being cold and everything. And to be honest, I think that is how the character was written pretty much. But I just think that watching it, I'm just like, oh, there's another version of this. And if anyone ever wants to go on like Archive of Our Own and write some fanfic about these characters, I feel like there's room to explore the idea that they are both autistic. Like, the Joan Fontaine character, is so fantastically awkward all the time. She asks the most awkward, blunt questions. She talks about things that are completely like socially inappropriate for the time. She doesn't seem to pick up on social cues. She doesn't, but you also see her working really, really hard to try and understand. She buys the magazines to understand how to dress, and she follows the rules as much as she can while she's operating in a world with all these rules, but no one has bothered to explain the rules to her. And you see Maxim, like, you could completely read that as like he is genuinely not picking up on those social cues. It's not because he doesn't care. It's not because he is like cold and heartless to her. He's genuinely not picking up on this stuff. He frequently seems to be kind of overwhelmed by events. Both of them do, and have these kind of like, like what might be seen as kind of like low-key kind of meltdowns over things. He himself is missing every single social cue going. He just seems to be completely confused by things that everyone else takes for granted. When she turns up wearing the new dress and he's like, what have you done to yourself? And it's like, she's making an effort, man. Like, she's trying to kind of dress the way she thinks you want her to dress, because you've given her no indication of what you like about her. So she doesn't know what you want. And I'm not saying that in like, he's an idiot way, absolutely not. But what I'm saying is, if you read his character as autistic and not noticing these cues and these kind of social conventions himself, I just think it's such an interesting telling. And I'm really enjoying seeing those kind of dual versions of like, okay, the version I first interacted with, which is like, is he cold, standoffish because he's hiding something? Or is he cold and standoffish because he is genuinely not realizing the impact his behavior is having on her, and he's not picking up on the social cues, and he's not picking up on the emotional nuances of what's going on? Either way, he's still an arsehole. But I just think it's interesting to kind of unpack that, and interesting for her as well. Like, she really reminds me of a lot of my female autistic friends, in terms of people who have continually just been told over and over again that they're getting it wrong and they're doing something wrong. And she cannot have an interaction in this film without someone telling her that her hair is wrong, that her demeanor is wrong. And it does drive you into a place, I think, when you just feel like you can't do anything right and you're second guessing everything and you just feel so unsure all the time. The other thing about it is how well they seem to kind of get on with each other in between conversations, if that makes sense. Like, they just come across as so companionable, and they just seem to just relax in each other's company. Like, we're looking at the honeymoon footage of them, and they just seem to relax in each other's company. And that is something I, as a neurodivergent person, really recognize, where I look back on my life on people who I have on paper not had a lot in common with, like these two don't. She's like lower middle class, upper working class, from a very kind of like modest background. He's like wealthy landowning gentry. He's like, what, 20 years older than her? Oh my God, the point where he calls her like, children must be kept warm. It's just like, stop calling your wife a child, man. Although, once again, in keeping with autistic women's experiences, where they are often infantilized. Anyway, I look back on my life and I think about the people who I have on paper had nothing in common with, but we just click. And it doesn't kind of matter what we're talking about or how we're spending our time. They are a comfortable person for me to be around. And I think I was a comfortable person for them to be around. And I feel like that is reflected in the relationship we see between them. So that's where we're at. It's absolutely boiling here today, suddenly, for no reason. Like when I put this on, it was starting to rain, and obviously it's a film full of rain, so I was like, perfect. And now it's like a flaring sun. But how are the projects going, you ask? Well, you'll notice I said projects, plural, because I've had to switch. So I was getting on with the shawl, and then I finished the skein I was using, and I realized I have not wound up the next skein. And I didn't want to spend the film winding it up because I don't have a Swift. I just hang it on a doorknob and then just kind of like ball it up myself. I don't want to spend it doing that. So instead, I've switched to a familiar project, if you've seen my videos before, the Primley cardigan. So I've done the back piece and I've done one of the front pieces. And now I'm doing the front piece on the other side. And it's coming along because I kind of just want something that's just like, I don't want to think about what I'm crafting at the minute. So I've literally just cast off for the arms. So I'm starting to do the decreasing on that. Ironically, this is the other thing that I wanted to finish before the wedding, because I think if I don't finish the shawl, I might be able to wear this cardigan with the dress I've got in mind. So one or the other of them has got to get finished. But yeah, going to carry on working on that for now, because I don't want to deal with the second skein, the shawl. I'll do it later. I'll do it tonight. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying it so far. Let's get back to it. What a torturous place to stop at. The point that I'm at is Maxim has just confessed to Joan Fontaine that he did not love Rebecca, as she's been assuming all the way through. And he actually hated her. And actually, Rebecca was a thoroughly bad sort. And there's a lot of coded language going on to basically explain the fact that Rebecca was shagging away behind his back and had got pregnant. I think the last bit as it hit 1 hour 30 was that she had fallen over and died. Do we believe him? I mean, she was pregnant. Pregnancy makes people dizzy, but so I had completely forgotten basically the middle of this film, and I was genuinely thinking, how is this film 2 hours long? Like, I had completely forgotten the whole Mrs. Danvers whispering in Joan Fontaine's ear about, why don't you give in? Why don't you go to the sea? Why don't you just leave? And like next to an open window. The whole kind of pushing her to suicide thing. I had managed to completely forgotten about that. And I'd forgotten the shipwreck. I'd forgotten that this whole scene went down in the cottage. So yeah, now I'm just like, it feels a little bit like every time a new scene happens, I'm like, right, I remember. But yeah, I had just wiped loads of this from my memory. So I'm really enjoying it still. I know it's a very specific old-timey way of filmmaking. And obviously Laurence Olivier is so theatrical. I do love it. I love it so much. Also, like, my theory that they are both autistic is just like growing and growing, but also like going back to the whole just toxic relationship, not communicating and everything. Like the whole thing of like them just both being so certain they know what the other thinks and it's completely wrong. This is the level of miscommunication that I do not tolerate in the books I read, but for some reason when it's old Hollywood, I just like gobble it up. Love the character. Is it George Fontaine, played by the guy who did the Shere Khan voice? He's barely in it, but he's so delicious. Like, he's awful, isn't he? Mrs. Danvers as well, I think, really came into her own in the last half hour. And I've seen quite a few theatre adaptations of this, and I feel like this really set a bar for that. Like, ever since then, every new interpretation of Mrs. Danvers I see is just more heightened and more intense. I have seen so many adaptations where she is like in love with Rebecca, where she is like actively trying to push the Joan Fontaine character out the window. Like, I feel like every adaptation is heightened in terms of like the psychological terror she brings and the campaign of terror that she wages on Joan Fontaine. But this particular portrayal, and I cannot think of another thing I've seen the actress in, actually, it's just so good. I feel like all of the people playing these roles really set a standard for visual adaptations of the book from this, and anyone who adapts the story now really has to just pay so much homage. But that said, I am ready for a new adaptation of this, I think. I want to see it in the present day. I want to see it in a kind of like this is a bit of a random connection, but kind of Saltburn visual style. I'm very ready for it, you know, the hauntingness of the great house. I'm ready to see Cornwall with all the mists. I've been to Cornwall and visited Jamaica Inn. That was another book that Du Maurier wrote. And yeah, it is bleak and atmospheric, and you would totally believe stuff like this is going down there. Like, obviously, all the kind of popular depictions of it are quite often like beautiful seaside beaches kind of thing. But yeah, that place is atmospheric. So getting ready to watch the last half hour. And I'm getting on well with the old cardigan as well. I am still annoyed at myself that I didn't realise about that extra skein of wool to do the shawl, because I feel like I would have got a lot done. And I might have to do another one of these. But for now, the cardigan. So I have finished the armhole shaping here. And then I just need to knit straight for a bit until I get to a point where I start doing the neckline shaping here. It's not many stitches on the needle now, but I always overestimate how much I can get done. So I want to say I want to get up to the neck shaping by the end of the film, but we'll see. All right, let's get into the final 30 minutes. Hey, just editing, and I forgot about this. So basically there is a pause in this final half hour of the film where all the sound goes out. It's for a couple of minutes. I'll put the timestamp on screen. It happens at a time when it's just them talking. You can kind of guess what they're talking about and everything. But I will put 2 links in the description, because there are 2 versions of this available on YouTube. So you can either skip the bit when they're being quiet, or just use that time to make a cup of tea or something. Or if you are keen to know what they're saying, I will put in a second version in there, which I think has sound all the way through. But I haven't watched it myself, so I can't guarantee. I don't know why the sound goes out. There's people speculating in the comments that it was like to avoid copyright infringement, but I watched loads of films on YouTube and I've never seen that before. I don't know, but just to give you the heads up that that's coming, like I said, I'll put the timestamp up so you can see it. Film's ended, and I have had a costume change, because by the time I finished watching the film, it was a bit too dark to keep videoing, so I'm giving you an update the next day, which means I've had even more time to think about how much I love this film. I think that definitely the first quarter of the film and the last quarter of the film are the strongest, and they're the ones that are either gonna, if you like them, you're gonna love the film. If not, you're not. I think a lot of important things happen in the middle of the film, but it's like the ending. Hopefully, if this is the first time you've seen it, you find it satisfying. I found it super satisfying. I was very relieved to see that Jasper survived, because I could not remember if we saw him, Jasper the dog. I could not remember if we saw him after the fire. And obviously, if we hadn't seen him, I would have just assumed and told myself he got out. But I was relieved to see him. I love how just immediately down to clown Joan Fontaine's character was. The second she heard Maxim didn't love Rebecca, you did not see her ask a single question or even have a single thought about, did my husband definitely lose his horrible, conniving, evil wife due to an accident? Did he really need to kind of put her body in a boat and sink the boat rather than just kind of call it to the house and said she'd had an accident? Like, is there anything at all dodgy? She was just immediately like, okay, cool. This is how we deceive the police. This is how we deceive the medical examiner. This is how we kind of like absolve you of everything you've ever done. Like, immediate, like, okay, cool. I know what's going on. I have a problem to solve. This is what we're going to do. Maxim did not really go along with her plan, did he? Of just deny everything. It felt like he was 10 seconds away from like, not even 10 seconds, 2 seconds away from making some like dramatic outburst in the court about how he killed Rebecca or something, even though in theory he didn't. Do we think that they were happy when the film ended? I think it was absolutely a blessing to them that Mandalay got burnt down. I think it was in the book that, which wasn't featured in the film, but I think the ending was that they moved like back to Monte Carlo and opened a hotel or something. And I just believe that they just lived out their days, having a nice old time, going sunbathing, going for little drives. She did her paintings. They had a nice time. I think it's sad that they won't have seen much of his sister anymore, but honestly, I think theirs is the classic example of a relationship where you kind of need to be able to leave the past behind in order to kind of step into this new life. I want to believe she got to enjoy not being a downtrodden little companion, not being criticized all the time. I want to believe that he enjoyed being in love with someone who actually loved him back. Like, I think they had a good time. I mean, like, sinister couple, definitely. Like, you would not want to be the person who crossed them, would you? But yeah, I mean, it's such a specific dynamic, I think, of a couple, and like I would not particularly enjoy reading that in a book that wasn't Rebecca. Like, if I read that in a contemporary novel, I would just be a bit like, I'm not really vibing with these people. And I don't know if that's because I read this book when I was very young and impressionable, or if I think my dad showed me the film when I was like 10. So just like, it's just kind of like, I just love it. It's comfort watching for me. I enjoy how theatrical it is. I love the hints of Hitchcock's style that we see coming through, and we see themes that he goes on to massively develop. But yeah, just really enjoyed it. And if it was the first time you've seen it, I hope you enjoyed it too. And with the cardigan, so because yesterday it was too dark for me to video anymore, I just spent my time chomping through the last of these to chocolate and finishing up the second front of the cardigan. So 1, 2, and I'm tempted to just do like assemble these and the back and do the button band and everything in the collar, because I technically could do that without having to worry about the sleeves. But I worry if I do that, I'll be tempted just to turn this into just a little sleeveless button-up vest type thing, because I always do that. I kind of like, if I assemble the body part, I'm like, okay, cool, like maybe that's done. And I want to finish the sleeves. I want this to be a cardigan, and I've started the first sleeve. That's how committed I am to finishing this. And I would honestly love it if I could wear the wedding, but I think I need to get serious about the shawl as well. I need ridiculously working on my primary option and my backup option at the same time, less than a week before the wedding. But anyway, I don't think I'll do another one of these for a while, but if you would like to see another one of them, please let me know. And if you've been working on one of your projects while watching this, like, let me know what you're working on, because I always like to hear that. Cool. All right. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do whatever you want. Bye.